When the legacy systems gatekeepers make your current existence harder, Bitcoin's promise looks better and more tempting. All is not well in the world of money. Over the last few years, prices and assets didn't just get more expensive, your economic value got diluted. Welcome back, everybody. For my next read, I'm going to read Money Blindness and Money Clarity by Joakim Book. I believe that the one topic that most people, most normies, noobs, just don't really grasp is inflation. And it's tricky because there are two types of inflation. There's monetary inflation and there's price inflation. And most people focus on the price inflation. They don't realize what monetary inflation is and how it affects price inflation. So his article, Money Blindness and Money Clarity, it really simplifies it for the reader. So it's a quick read. I'm going to read it and then share my thoughts on it. But without further ado, here's Joakim Book's Money Blindness and Money Clarity. It starts out with a quote from GEM and Scombe's An Introduction to Wittgenstein's Tractus in 1971. Wittgenstein once greeted me with the question, why do people say that it was natural to think that the sun went round the earth rather than that the earth turned on its axis? I replied, I suppose because it looked as if the sun went round the earth. Well, he asked, what would it look like if it had looked as if the earth turned on its axis? Last month, my mother rejoiced at getting a raise. Instead of the company policy routinely upping wages by 1% to 2%, this year she received a breathtaking 3.5%, for which she was exceedingly happy. In a completely unrelated observation, she complained often and loudly at how grocery prices had become noticeably higher. Everything got so expensive, she injected into every other conversation. Not only had she overlooked that her wage increase was actually a real wage cut of about 7% when factoring in consumer prices, she was measuring prices in a currency that itself was imploding against neighboring fiat monies. Specifically, she meant to vacation in Italy and Ireland this year, both Eurozone countries where her depreciating Swedish krona buys her 13% fewer euros than they did last summer. On top of that, Eurozone food prices, those to which she is mostly exposed as a meandering tourist, have in the last 2 years risen at some 20%, according to Eurostat. Roughly speaking, then, my mother's ability to generate economic value got reduced by about a third. Yet she thinks she's better off because that paycheck at the end of the month has larger numbers on it. Pointy hats in Frankfurt and Stockholm cut her economic value by some 30% and somehow still convinced her that she was better off. The dissonance is easy to spot when it's laid out like this, but much harder to identify as it happens. In the book When Money Dies, Adam Ferguson's classic account of the hyperinflations in the 1920s, ordinary Germans and Austrians, quote, assume not so much that their money was falling in value as that the goods which it bought were becoming more expensive in absolute terms, unquote. Even in one of the worst imploding currencies debacles of the last century, people still thought that the trouble was that goods became more and more expensive, not that there's something wrong with the money itself. This is the mischief that inflation causes regular people, misplacing the blame and misidentifying what's going on. With knowledge, time, and effort, you can mitigate some of those effects by holding investments that rival the growth in the money supply, or hard assets like property or art that are mostly immune to nominal shenanigans. But even though you must diligently ensure that they outperform the loss of purchasing power in case your income doesn't get fully adjusted to prices, the best result comes from shorting the currency itself by perversely taking on as much cheap debt as you possibly can, or the banks dare to give you, a game that the wealthy and the well-connected are miles better at playing than you or I. Macroeconomists and policymakers can speak of anchored expectations all they want, but what ultimately happens is that regular folk find themselves impoverished without really understanding what went wrong or how they could have done things differently. Cue 2008, or 2020, or 2023. Even if you think inflation is ordinarily stable and expectations are well anchored around target, such that nobody but cash holders get shafted by the unit's steady 2% erosion, it only takes events like the Great Financial Crisis or the Rona money printing debacle to completely undo those calculations. Perhaps the exceptional once-in-a-generation or Goldman's infamous 25 sigma, events that seem to happen every decade are just a streak of bad luck. Or perhaps your model of the world is broken. Price inflation in consumer goods was indeed stable for close to a decade before something blew up the banking system, unleashed monetary printing, turned government policy from irresponsible to unhinged, unleashed double-digit inflation, and almost broke the banks. This is not a system anyone can point to as functional and beneficial. Michael Saylor, the executive chairman of MicroStrategy and one of the loudest Bitcoin proponents out there, gave a talk to this effect at last week's BTC Prague conference. In the fiat world, you need to run faster and faster just to stay still. It's the epitome of a hamster wheel, gradually draining the economic value of your work away from you and toward other ends. Saylor thinks of that as a war over the redistribution of economic energy. Quote, "No amount of hard work is going to solve the problem of being on the wrong side of that economic war," unquote. Against hardish assets like the S&P index, real estate, and golden art, the US dollar is collapsing. And it's even worse if you aren't hinged to the dollar. Saylor again, in quote, "In 20 years, the Argentine peso has lost 99.8% of its value against the dollar at the same time that the dollar has lost 75% of its value against the S&P index. I'll let you do the math. The government is an order of magnitude more powerful an economic driver than technology, and technology is an order of magnitude more powerful than your work," unquote. What we're left with is a choice between losing money fast or losing money slow. No matter how good we are, we can't outwork those kinds of obstacles. Perhaps you'd have doubts about Bitcoin's viability as base money. I know I did. Perhaps you think gold has superior monetary properties, but gold lost to fiat confiscation once, so it makes you think it won't again. Besides, returning to gold requires coordination among the very policymakers who are least likely to appreciate its virtues or see what's wrong with the way things are going. All Bitcoin needs to succeed is for us, one at a time, to exit the crumbling fort that is fiat. In an article for Bitcoin Magazine's print edition this month, I explained that whatever your view of Bitcoin, it gets comparatively better when the legacy system gets worse. And here Joakim is quoting himself from that article. "If we saw the full price tag, saw the full extent of the monetary catastrophe we're in, we might not be so quick to reject Bitcoin's unstable value or the uninitiated's confusing user experiences. When the legacy system's gatekeepers make your current existence harder, Bitcoin's promise looks better and more tempting. All is not well in the world of money. Over the last few years, prices and assets didn't just get more expensive, your economic value got diluted. Don't mistake the Earth's rotation with what it looks like from the perspective of someone standing on its surface." Hey y'all, if you're enjoying this content, please like and subscribe. Also, let me know if there's anything that specifically interests you about Bitcoin. Feel free to send articles or other suggestions my way. Thanks again, and keep listening for my breakdown of this article. So there you have it, money blindness and money clarity. I don't know about you, but I would venture to guess the majority of the world, over 90%, has money blindness. They're like those people in the past who thought the sun orbits the earth because that's what it looks like. At some point, they had to realize it's actually the earth spinning on its axis. And I love how he uses that quote because that illusion mirrors the facade of financial stability presented by our fiat currencies. Just as Joachim's mother celebrated a raise that was eclipsed by inflation, many of us bask in the illusion of financial security while our purchasing power evaporates. The raise is just a mere numerical adjustment. It failed to offset the relentless tide of rising prices, not to mention the harsh reality of currency depreciation on a global stage. As he pointed out, this isn't just about a diminished vacation fund. It's an illustration of the erosion of economic value. A third of value, just like that, gone. Yet, the illusion of prosperity persists. And in the face of such deceit, the traditional counsel of investing in assets or shorting currencies to outpace inflation feels like a privileged game, accessible to the few, leaving the most of us floundering in a sea of depreciating fiat. The real kicker? The collective shrug from those who steer the monetary ship, even as it takes on water. The narrative of anchored expectations rings hollow when faced with the cataclysms of financial crises, each ostensibly a freak occurrence, yet predictably cyclical, in their devastation of ordinary financial lives. But that's where Bitcoin comes in. In a world where fiat currencies spiral in a maddening dance of devaluation, Bitcoin stands firm. It's not just an asset, it's a statement. A rejection of the hamster wheel economy where you have to run even faster for diminishing returns. Where fiat currencies flounder, Bitcoin offers a sanctuary, immune to the whims of policy changes and the inflationary impulses of central banks. Critics point to Bitcoin's volatility and the complexities of its use as barriers. Yet, when measured against the backdrop of fiat's failings, these challenges pale in comparison. Bitcoin's essence lies not in its current state, but in its potential to redefine what money is and how it works. It's a choice for clarity over confusion, for stability over chaos. As fiat currencies falter, Bitcoin's proposition grows only stronger, a testament to its resilience and the foresight of those who embrace it. This is not merely a financial debate. It's a pivotal choice about the future of economic power. Will we cling to a crumbling fiat fortress? Or will we step into the Bitcoin lifeboat, navigating towards a horizon of monetary integrity and freedom? In this era of financial tumult, the choice seems clear. Bitcoin is not just an alternative, it's a necessity, a beacon guiding us away from the illusions of fiat stability and toward a future where our economic value is preserved, not plundered. So let's not be fooled by appearances, just as we now understand the Earth's rotation. The path to monetary clarity and sustainability lies not within the fiat mirage, but in the solid ground Bitcoin offers.